Quebec is a province dominated by water and forest. At its heart lies the St. Lawrence, a river so vast it becomes an estuary, feeding tidal flats, rocky islands and sea cliffs alive with birds. Beyond the river, endless boreal forest stretches across the land. Dark spruce and pine filled with warblers, thrushes and crossbills, their song filling the canopy. Along the river's edge, wetlands and estuaries harbour herons, terns and shorebirds, each bound to the turning of the tide and the seasons. For birders, Quebec is a meeting place of forest and water, land and sea, north and south.
Here in Quebec, we'll explore those environments and the birds that depend on them.
Hi everyone, welcome back. Bienvenue dans la belle Provence. We're in Quebec. My name is Stu.
I'm Sarah, and as you saw in the title, this is also the 350 bird challenge.
Regular viewers will know we're trying to see 350 birds before the end of the year. We're getting pretty close, and for the next little while, we're going to be spending some time in Quebec. Sarah, what's the name of this location?
We are at Le Reservoir Faunique de Marguerite-Duville.
Already seen quite a few good birds. Baltimore oriole flew over, lots of song sparrows around. We also saw a hummingbird, but we're mostly here for shorebirds. We've heard it's a good location for that. We actually stopped at one other location first. Sarah, where was that?
So we stopped at Vaudreuil.
We saw a few least sandpipers and some fairly good looks at lesser yellowlegs there. But we're going to continue at this new location next and see what else we can find here. Stay tuned. In a little while, we'll talk about our general itinerary for the whole of Quebec that we're visiting. But for the meantime, let's carry on around this particular trail. Refuge Faunique Marguerite-Duville is about 550 acres of meadow, woodland and St. Lawrence shoreline, just southwest across the river from Montreal. There is a $9 entrance fee. Lots of friendly birds here, sometimes a little bit bossy too. Nearby, a few warblers. This bay-breasted warbler makes a comedy-failed attempt to grab some berries. Let's try that again. A few access points along the trail, and they gave us our first views of the St. Lawrence River. Unfortunately, the shorebirds flushed, leaving us with some mallards and the heat-hazed Montreal skyline in the distance. Unfortunately, the larger shorebird flew away, leaving behind just another spotted sandpiper, but that's okay. This is a large place for us to take a look around and see what else is here. Meanwhile, back in the woods again, some cool-looking fungi. Probably chicken of the woods, but I'll tell you what, you can taste it first just to make sure. Well guys, as you can see from the corner of the screen, we don't need very many more birds at all, and we think we've just seen another one, Sarah.
Yeah, we think we just saw a chimney swift.
Definitely some kind of swallow-type bird. It was far away, and through the camera it's hard to tell, but I'll look back at it, and as you're watching this video, you'll know whether it was or not. We're pleased to tell you that this is a new bird, chimney swift. And don't worry, our video footage of birds only gets better from here. In addition to the bay-breasted warbler, we saw this magnolia warbler and a black-throated green warbler. It's good to see some bird activity. It's been a quiet couple of months, that's why you've not seen too many videos from us. Things have cooled down compared to kind of July and August, and it's good to see that reflected in the bird activity. Before we go much further, let's dive into our itinerary over the next few days as we travel through Quebec, looking for birds and other wildlife. We have 11 days in Quebec. And just as the southern landscape here is shaped by the St. Lawrence River, so too is our itinerary. We're starting just outside Montreal and will cross to the river's south side, following its course for several days, birding along the way, until we reach Rimouski. From there, we turn east and trace a counterclockwise route around the Gaspe Peninsula. Midway around, we'll stop in Percé and take a short ferry to Bonaventure Island for a visit with the Northern Gannets, before continuing on to Matane. Here, we'll board a 2-hour ferry across the mighty St. Lawrence, its widest crossing, landing on the north shore at Baie-Comeau. Our return journey takes us through Tadoussac and then Quebec City, before finishing back in Montreal with, we hope, an impressive collection of bird sightings. On this trip, we will be in hot pursuit of shorebirds that we haven't seen yet this year, with opportunities to add boreal perching birds like evening grosbeak, redpoll, Boreal Chickadee, and maybe some grouse. Closer to the ocean, we will hope for seabirds like gulls, jaegers, auk species, and kittiwakes. The question is, how many of these birds will we find on this trip?
Sarah, how do you like them apples?
Deeper into the woods, we stumbled across a pair of pileated woodpeckers. Good views of this one, the other was more camera shy. Here's a little brown creeper. Like the nuthatch we showed you earlier, this tiny bird has a large, strong back claw that allows it to cling to the tree's textured bark. And one of my favourite garden-type birds, the tufted titmouse.
A nice burst of activity there, including a tufted titmouse, and if you've been watching this channel for a while, you'll know that I've got a bit of a soft spot for that species, including owning a t-shirt with a tufted titmouse on the front of it. It's a bird that's a little bit harder to find in Ontario, especially in the Golden Horseshoe kind of region. We haven't taken very good care of our woodland habitat there, but here in Quebec, there's a lot more of it. In this particular location, although the trees behind me aren't super mature, there are quite a few bigger trees here, so it's a good habitat for these woodland species.
We spent most of the morning at Refuge Faunique, Marguerite de Youville, and scoped the coast each time we got views of it. Pretty views, but no shorebirds for us. We pressed on through the woods until we emerged into a swampy habitat. We saw half a dozen egrets and herons here and there, and several common sparrows. A few least skippers in the swampy plants, and this hickory tussock moth back in the wooded area.
Okay guys, we've completed a loop, and other than the spotted sandpiper, no other shrubs, but that's okay because we've still got plenty of time to go on this trip, and plenty of cool looking locations to visit too. Sarah was just talking to me about how we could actually hit 350 on this trip under certain circumstances. Sarah?
So over the length of the trip, we need to average 2 new birds per day in order to hit that 350.
So it might happen, and although there might be days where we don't get anything, there might be days where we get 5 or 6. So stay tuned and let's see if we can hit it. In the meantime, there's a cafe at this location, and we're both feeling pretty hungry at this point, so I think we're going to stop there for something to eat. And then what we tend to do is, Sarah's the research boss. She's going to look and see what kind of sightings are along our route towards our next hotel, and if there's anything interesting, we'll stop at a new location. So stay tuned and we'll see where that ends up being.
We headed towards the cafe, but it was overrun with a school trip, so we decided to take the fast food route instead.
Well, it turns out that the cafe was a little bit too busy for us to stop there, so we've come to the Petit Quebec. Let me tell you, the hot dogs are good and the serving of fries is extremely generous. Sarah has found us a new spot, so we're going to head there now. This is going to involve a lot of driving on this trip. This one's going to be a 2-hour drive, so stay tuned and we'll be back in a sec.
Onto the not very scenic road for a while, because we wanted to pass Montreal's traffic before the afternoon and reach a new location for the day, a little further inland.
Okay folks, we're at a new location. Going forward in this video, you'll have to excuse me if I massacre any French, but we're at Reservoir Beaudet in Victoriaville. It doesn't get much more English sounding than Victoriaville, does it? Despite the problems we had ordering an orange Pico tea at Tim Hortons, but we got it. Will we get anything here though? Sarah, what has been sighted in the last few days?
So there's been Barrett sandpiper, white rump sandpiper, and red-necked phalarope.
It does look a little bit quiet at first glance. Some of the common species you'd expect, cormorants, plenty of those around close up, and a few further out on mudflats. Also pied-billed grebe, a couple of those. We're going to continue to those mudflats and see if there's any shorebirds. Stay tuned, bit of a walk, we'll be there shortly.
Quite a good look at a couple of pied-billed grebes. This one is younger, it has stripes on the face. We walked along the outside of the reservoir, looking out onto the water and the mud. Any shorebirds were too far away to identify, but the white geese in the centre here are snow geese. Quebec sees a lot of snow goose migration and staging during the spring and the fall.
We've just had a peregrine falcon fly over us twice. Both times I failed to get it on camera. If you're new, we have to get birds on camera to be able to count them. I did get a brief shot of it flying away from us, but it's not a good enough shot to count it. It would feel like cheating if we did. On the other hand, Sarah, you were saying that there's quite a few opportunities to get peregrine falcon on this trip.
Yeah, so been looking at potential targets for every day of this trip, and because peregrines will go after shorebirds and we're mainly targeting shorebirds, peregrine falcon shows up a lot as a target species in our various hotspots that we're targeting.
We're going to look out over the water for just a little bit, see if it comes back again, but it's time for us to start turning back, I think, in a moment.
We had some fun watching a green heron unsuccessfully hunting frogs. The crest goes up with excitement and anticipation. Even a bit of a tail wag. Those distant shorebirds I mentioned didn't stick around too long once this pair made an appearance.
Okay guys, we are out of time. We need to head back to the car, go to our hotel, run a few errands and that kind of thing. We saw a few bits and pieces today. To be fair, they were a little bit further out, but stay tuned to the video because we are expecting closer views of birds at some of the more kind of premier spots, let's put it that way. We gotta do a bit of driving, head to the hotel as I say. Stay tuned, this video continues with tomorrow's adventuring. See you soon. Good morning everyone, welcome back. I need a bit of French help. Where are we, Sarah?
We are at the St. Vallier Refuge of migratory birds.
There's a few shorebirds kicking around here. It's really nice views, St. Lawrence River, a couple of bays, some little inlets and things. Really good habitat for shorebirds, and there are a few here. We think it's mostly semi-palmated, a few petrel and lots of least sandpiper, which are all birds we've already seen, but we'll show you some clips. There's been a northern harrier flying around as well. That's causing them to flush quite regularly, so we're having to chase them around, but let's go take a look.
A lot of the shorebirds were hiding in the grasses, like this pectoral sandpiper. We could hear them, but we couldn't see them. This least sandpiper was a lot more showy, but I'm not sure if it's sick or injured, or maybe it's just cowering nervously because here's the northern harrier that would cause the birds to flush from time to time. The shorebirds were a challenge to identify from here, but we'll surely get better views as the trip rolls on. We decided to continue our journey along the St. Lawrence. Let's leave Saint-Vallier, because beyond this point, near Ile-d'Orleans, the river begins to open wider, but we're going to stop off at a small town next.
Okay guys, we're at our next stop and there's a big waterfall out there, so we're filming in the car else you won't hear us. We've had a quick look and there's a ton of yellowlegs. It's a yellowlegs party. Sarah, what's the name of the location?
So we're in Montmagny at Le Parc Jardin des Souches.
Go take another look, come join us while we pick through lots of yellowlegs and see if there's anything else fancy there.
Loads of yellowlegs here, mostly greater yellowlegs, but there might be one or two lessers mixed in. There's a least sandpiper here too, the smaller rufous-coloured bird. Oh, and look, a lifer stilt sandpiper. By the way, it's September, so shorebirds in this Quebec video will be mostly in non-breeding plumage, so they all look a bit grey and similar to each other. Differences are subtle at this time of the year. Look at this stilt sandpiper's legs. They're yellow, but not bright yellow. Here it is again amongst some yellowlegs, which have much brighter coloured legs. The stilt is also a bit smaller than the greater yellowlegs, and its bill also has a slight downturn. Straining our eyes to see a little bit further, we saw cormorants, ring-billed gulls and a few ducks. Mostly mallards, but a few green-winged teal at some distance from us. Okay guys, as I mentioned, lots and lots of yellowlegs, but we think we've got a stilt sandpiper. That's a lifer, new bird for the challenge. Just need to confirm that one, but we're fairly confident. Stilt sandpiper. We also had some kind of flyover as well, but didn't really get great looks. What do you think that might have been?
So in talking with someone else, we kind of came to the agreement that we think it's a long-billed dowitcher, but we were looking at it from behind, so hard to tell for sure the length of the beak. We just knew it was long.
I got some disappearing footage of it flying away, but I don't think it's diagnostic, so we'll have to let that one slide. Time for a new stop. We're just going a little bit further down the road. Some French-speaking birders that I didn't have a clue what they were saying, but Sarah picked out much of it. Gave us a recommendation where we might find a white-rumped sandpiper. That would also be a lifer. Let's go take a look. Further upstream, along the Rivière du Sud, we scanned the water and rocks at the river's confluence with the Bras Saint-Nicolas. At first, it seemed deserted, but sometimes you just have to spot a bit of movement. There's 2 short-billed dowitchers here, which is a new bird for the year. Alright guys, no white-rumped sandpiper, but we did see short-billed dowitcher. We're pretty confident. We already had long-billed dowitcher from our time spent in Arizona, so we've added short-billed, and that's our 2 for the day average, so we're doing pretty good so far today. We're not sure where to go next. We're going to take a look at some sightings that have recently come in, people birding through the day saying what they saw, see if anybody's seen anything that we need, and if not, we'll just see if there's any good spots that look promising for us. So stay tuned, bit of a drive, back in a sec. Time to put some miles on the clock and make some distance. By the end of today, we need to get to Rimouski, but for now, we stopped at a quay. Quai Taché in Kamouraska. It was incredibly windy here, and no surprise that there weren't many birds. Just a handful of semi-palmated plovers taking shelter in the mud behind the quay. And so, we continued a little further along the coast. Okay folks, following on from those brief couple of stops, we've come to a new location.
We are at Parc Côtier Kiskotuk.
This place consists of several lots of land that specialise in different habitats. Not going to have time to do all of them, but do you know which one we're at right now, Sarah?
I don't remember what it is in French, but it's the Grand Marche.
We might see if we've got time to do another one, but we do have a time to keep to. We have a bit of a nicer dinner to have tonight, reservations at a restaurant, so we will have to push on shortly. But let's take a quick look. Did just get another peregrine falcon flyover. Tough to get them on camera. You see them for a couple of seconds and it's too late, but fingers crossed we'll still find that before the end of the trip. The weather was beginning to turn on us a little, but we committed to going at least as far as the marsh. And as you can see, it wasn't exactly a hive of activity. Cool though to see this kingfisher hovering over the water. Once they spot some prey, they dive headfirst into the water to try to catch it. Just a small catch this time, but a success. These are green-winged teal, and we also saw mallards and cormorants, and a few song sparrows. These ones are ring-necked ducks. And, well, then the rain started. We made a dash for the car and decided to drive on. Next stop, Rimouski. Well guys, several stops later and we have arrived a lot further down the road into Rimouski. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Very good. This is actually our stop for the night, and as you can probably tell, the weather's got progressively worse. It's now raining. We had some pretty heavy rain on the way, so we're going to call it for the day, but we've got our 2 new birds, so it hasn't been too bad, and we'll join you again tomorrow morning. Stay tuned. Good morning everyone, it's a fresh new day. Sarah, what's our first stop?
We are at Point-au-Père.
We haven't seen too much here, to be honest with you. A couple of interesting sightings, some more yellowlegs, and we also saw an interesting sea duck, so we'll take a quick look, but I think we're going to move on after that. A couple more greater yellowlegs. You can see the bill is slightly upturned on the closer one, which is one way to tell them apart from lesser yellowlegs when size is harder to judge. And that sea duck shot, we'll see them closer later many times, but it's a common eider, and it's worth mentioning that we actually saw a common eider already earlier this year in Peterborough, Ontario. Very rare for that area, but common here. Pointe-au-Père is a great birding spot, but just happened to be quiet this morning, and because we have to keep moving, we'll have to say bye for now. After our stay in Rimouski, it's time to start heading inland. Our plan today is to travel towards the Baie Chaleur and then begin a counterclockwise circle around the Gaspe Peninsula. The rainy weather that began yesterday, thankfully, was forecast to clear up. While we wait for that to happen, a slight change in gears.
Well guys, things were a little bit quiet towards the end of yesterday and into this morning apparently. The reason for that is these shorebirds are on their migration south. They breed in the far north and then they head south to the southern US, South America, that kind of thing. They don't just hang around here. They land to feed and then they're on their way again. They migrate overnight in ideal weather conditions, especially if the wind is in a prevailing direction to help them with that migration. So we're really hoping for a kind of fallout day where there's been a lot of overnight migration and we just happen to see them in the morning and there's plenty of them hanging around. So we've continued our journey. We're kind of traversing the inland part of the peninsula now to head to the opposite shore. In the meantime, there's a lot of covered bridges in Quebec. Sarah, did you want to talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, so Matapedia, which is the region we're in right now, has been one of the areas that has preserved these most readily. So the covered bridges were created because during the harsh winters, wooden bridges would rot. It would only last 15 to 20 years. So by having them as covered bridges, it helped to extend the life of these bridges. For example, this one behind us was originally built in 1931.
Maybe we should take up spotting covered bridges. They don't migrate or fly away. If you're lucky, you might get to drive through one. There's around 82 of these covered bridges in Quebec, down from a peak of around 1,000 of them in the 1950s. We saw a few of these covered bridges on our trip, but this one, over the Rivière Matapedia, was the prettiest location we saw.
Okay guys, we've pulled off the side of the road in a bit of a rush. We've just seen some shorebirds just at the side of the road. We're at Place de Vieux-Quay.
Yeah.
Just outside of, do you remember the town?
Carleton-sur-Mer.
We're going to head down. There's also some eiders on the water. Maybe we'll get closer views of those. Common eiders, I think.
A savanna sparrow providing a momentary distraction. But unfortunately the shorebirds had left by the time we got there, but I decided to ready myself for the common eiders that were about to pass. Much better views of these sea ducks. They're in non-breeding plumage at this time of the year. They're the largest ducks in the northern hemisphere, and they're built for cold coastal waters. Their downy feathers are some of the warmest natural insulators known, and the eiders know it because females pluck their own down feathers in order to line their nests. Next up.
Okay guys, we've come further into Carleton-sur-Mer. We're on a bay.
Yeah, Baie de Chaleur.
There's a nice little inlet here and lots of cormorants, gulls and other things. We're going to see if we can find any other shorebirds or any other species that we still need. Very pretty here. We're going to take a look around.
We've been examining gulls as we travel. The large ones with black backs are great black-backed gulls. They have pink legs. If we see any that have yellow legs that are a little bit smaller, they are lesser black-backed, and we still need that species for our count. They're much less common though. Let's hit the beach.
Just been walking the beach here at Carleton-sur-Mer, and to be honest, a little bit worried that things got quiet yesterday. I haven't really picked up so far today, but walking just down by the water we did just see a sanderling. That's a new one for the year. We get to get a ding on that one. I did accidentally count it in a previous video and it turned out that that bird was actually a semi-palmated sandpiper, but that was new as well, so the dial gets to go up on this sanderling. Woohoo! So that's a new one for the day. It is one of the easier ones, but it's still one that we needed to get. Let's take a bit more of a look around here, see what else we can find. This speedy little sanderling is rushing around eating small flying insects that are hiding amongst the stones and pebbles of the beach. And just like buses, another bird soon appeared for us. This Northern Gannet is a lifer for us. Well guys, we just got a lifer that I didn't want to get yet. Some gannets have been flying past us, so yeah, lifer, but we are going to a breeding colony of those, so we'll get much closer looks, so stay tuned to the video for that. That should be happening tomorrow, right Sarah?
Yeah.
In the meantime, we are near the ocean now. We're just on a bay of the ocean, so we do have to start turning our attention a little bit more to pelagic species. What kind of things, Sarah? Like Jaegers, known as skuas in Europe.
Yeah, and certain members of the auk family, so like murs and razorbills.
Razorbill is your number one target for this trip, right? Yeah, I like the look of those too. That would also be a lifer for us. So stay tuned. We're going to spend just a couple more minutes here and then perhaps move on to a new stop. Thanks for giving us 2 new birds, Boreal Chickadee gash. With time moving on, so did we.
So we just had a quick look around at the Parc Municipal de la Pointe Verte, just in Maria. We did see a couple of things, so let's have a look at what we saw.
More greater yellowlegs. This pair scythe their partly open bills through the muddy water. They're trying to disturb and then feel for any prey. If they get something, they'll slam their bills shut and pluck their catch from the water. Okay, we have a bit of a drive ahead of us now. A couple of hours, Sarah?
Yeah, just under 2 hours.
Where are we heading for?
We're heading to Grand Pabot.
So stay tuned, bit of a drive. We decided we deserved a bit of a treat and an energy boost. Okay folks, after a couple of hours of driving, I needed some caffeine, so we've stopped at a cafe. Sarah?
We stopped at Miche Cafe.
We're just outside of Chandler. I got myself a latte. Sarah, what did you get?
An Ari glacé.
But more important than that, I got myself a little treat. I've done quite well so far. I've got a very sweet tooth, but I did manage to pick up, I don't even know what it is, I just like the look of it. Sarah, what the hell is it?
Not sure what it's called, but it's like a caramel apple coffee cake.
Anyway, lifestyle vlog over. It looks like we can get access to the bay down this way. We're going to see if we can drive down there and get a closer look. We see some birds out on some of the rocky shore. A small, distant rocky outcrop, and with a bit more zoom, we examined the cormorants to see if there were any errant great cormorants amongst the double-crested, but we didn't see any. And the black-backed gulls all appeared to be great black-backed. Oh well, you miss all of the shots that you don't take. A little further down the road, a couple of falcons were buzzing each other. We still need a peregrine falcon, but we just had a kestrel here trying to make friends with a merlin on this occasion. What the hell? Honestly, we've seen more merlins this year than there are Knights of the Round Table. Okay guys, back on the road for about another hour. We think we have time for one more stop today. Stay tuned, back in a bit. We're now approaching our destination for the evening. About halfway around the peninsula, tonight we're staying at Percé. Just before we turned in for the night, we decided to check out a nearby beach. Alright guys, we were just about to leave and a seal popped its head up. That was pretty cool, very brief views, but cool to see nonetheless. We can see Bonaventure Island in the distance over there. That's where we're heading tomorrow, all things going to plan, good weather, etc. We've seen a few gannets today doing flybys, but we'll get really good looks, so definitely worth staying tuned to the video for that. We'll be back after the break. We'll be catching the ferry over there, hopefully. Good morning, Sarah. What's today's plan?
Today we are going to cruise to Île Bonaventure via a circuit around Refuge.
So we're just waiting for the ticket office to open. We're a bit anxious that the town in general is quite busy, so we're trying to get to the front of the queue so there's tickets left.
A boat like this one will soon take us into the Gulf of the St. Lawrence for a circle around Bonaventure Island and eventual docking. The town of Percé takes its name from this towering limestone rock, and translated, Percé means pierced, for the natural arch cut into its side. Here, the Gulf of the St. Lawrence shows its force. Centuries of waves and winter ice have scoured a great arch, a weathered window to the shore. In Jacques Cartier's time, there were 3 of these arches. 2 of them have long since collapsed, and from the most recent to the left lie its broken rocks, and beside them stands the lone spire, L'Obélisque. From this landmark we set course for Bonaventure Island and began our circuit around it. We soon begin to see thousands of northern gannets and cormorants perched on the rocks, flying and diving. We'll look at them closer soon. But we must briefly say hello to these grey seals. They sprawl on the rocks to soak up the sun, then plunge into the cold Gulf waters with powerful dives. At the all-you-can-eat local seafood buffet, they get their money's worth. They've got broad, fishy tastes, with herring and caplin often on the daily specials. Soon enough, the dock of Bonaventure appeared. We disembarked, had a brief chat with some national park staff, and then we were on our way.
Okay guys, we're off the boat and we're walking towards the Gannet colony now. There are 3 trails across the island. We're taking the colony trail, which is the most direct one. It's about 3.5 kilometres. Expect it to take us about an hour or so.
Most people marched straight for the colony, but we took our time birding as we went.
We'll probably come back via a different route just to see if we pick anything up by going a different way, but in the meantime, lots of red-breasted nuthatch, some cedar waxwings, white-throated sparrows. Hard to spot them, but you can hear them peeping in the undergrowth. Fairly common birds, but let's keep going.
Lots of cedar waxwings about as well. The rattling calls of ravens echoed while goldfinch tittered and bounded across the sky. A brief raptor flyover. We think Coopers or Sharpie, but let's go with Sharpie, but we're open to correction. We're heading into fall, so warblers can be less bold and defined looking. This black-throated green warbler lacks the black throat, making it likely to be female or immature. The cover thins out as you approach the coast and the Gannet colony. And then we saw them, but more than that, we heard them. This immense colony consists of well over 100,000 northern gannets, the largest colony in North America, and they crowd every ledge and every corner of this shoreline and cliff, and they fill the skies and the waters around Bonaventure Island. Up close, the noise resolves into 1,000 dramas at once. Gannets are lifelong partners, and pairs often greet each other by rubbing their long bills together, a ritual that strengthens their bond. Sometimes a little help preening those harder to reach spots that your own long bill can't quite get. In this tight community, agitations arise, and some birds might get on with each other a little less well. By September, most chicks have grown to near adults, but still sport dark mottled plumage. That means the parents still have a bit of a job to do. At the edge of the colony, a makeshift runway. These larger-bodied birds need a run-up. Airbound, the gannet heads out to sea, where they are masters of the plunge dive. First, we need to find a promising fishing spot. And it's time to deploy the technique. They soar high, then fold their wings and spear into the water at tremendous speed, chasing schools of fish below the surface. Their aim is astonishingly precise. The fish swallowed whole, the gannet returns to the colony. Despite the apparent chaos, They remember their nesting spot and can recognise the unique call of their family members. Parents feed their catch to the young, softened and ready for their stomachs. It was a pleasure to spend a couple of hours with this huge colony and get an intimate but brief view of their lives, a bird we'd only seen for the first time yesterday. Sarah, can you hear the gannets? Can you smell the gannets?
Yeah.
On our way back across the island, we took the Sentier-la-Mousse, or the Moss Trail, where we'd be closer to some habitat edges which might increase our bird sightings. This cliffside walk provided us with several bald eagle flybys, and plenty of ravens too, often in pursuit. And we have a white-winged crossbill here. We suspect that we had several of these species fly over during the trip, but this is the first time I stood any chance of filming them while it was stationary. We still need red crossbill for the year, but not the white-winged crossbill. While the return journey started quiet, we met a couple of birders that told us that there was a fallout of birds further along the trail. I was thrilled at first, calling Sarah over, thinking we might have an American three-toed woodpecker. That would have been a lifer, but as it turns out, it's a close cousin, the black-backed woodpecker. Both belong to the same genus, defined by having just 3 toes. And here, the common names do the heavy lifting because this bird really does have a solid black back, while the 3-toed shows black and white barring instead. Still, I have an affection for this bird, and regular viewers will know that we failed to find it last year, but finally got this nemesis woodpecker back in the Ontario winter in Algonquin Park. This is our best views of a black-backed woodpecker. Out in the open and the bright sunshine, an olive-sided flycatcher. And this is a lifer. In the moment, we weren't sure on the ID, just that it was a flycatcher, but we confirmed it later when we could examine pictures more closely. The Moss Trail is named for the almost emerald green mosses that colonise the damp rocks, giving the surface a vivid sheen. Back near the harbour, a coffee and a sandwich while we watched the Gulf. Until our transport back to the mainland arrived. More gannets guided us home on much rougher waters by this afternoon.
Okay guys, we're back at our hotel now and we're going to go out for dinner shortly, but Bonaventure Island, we did a lot of walking today, including getting to the pier and all the trails. We had to do about 10 kilometres, but we did get really close looks at the gannets, right Sarah?
Yeah, it was nice to see a species that you normally only see at sea up so close, especially being able to take a look at the juveniles and some behaviours like how they take off to go flying.
Just want to say a quick thank you to our members. Without you guys, it's quite possible the channel wouldn't have continued this year, and we've had a couple of new sign-ups, so thank you to our continued supporters and our new ones, Angela and Michael, Kate and Brian, and we also recently got a donation from Daniela as well, so a one-off donation. Thanks for that. You guys really keep us going. We're going to sign off for the night. Sarah, what are our plans tomorrow?
So tomorrow we're going to hit a couple coastal places between here and Gaspe, and then head to Forillon National Park.
Stay tuned guys, we'll see you tomorrow.
Dinner at La Maison du Pêcheur and then bed, ready for another early start.
Hi everyone, it's a new day. It's actually a little later in the day, we're just into the afternoon. To be honest, it's been a bit of a slow start, so we didn't want to bore you with it too much. But we've kind of stopped along the coast as we've driven further around the peninsula. Sarah, what are some of the places we've been?
So we went to Côté-aux-Banques and Berchois, just outside of Percé. Did have a nice bird observatory that had some action going, but there weren't a lot of birds that we saw. And then we have been into, we also went to Pointe-aux-Pierres, so St. Peter's Point, which we did get some nice views of eiders coming into their breeding plumage, but now we are at Forillon National Park. We did start at Lanceau Amérindienne, but that was very quiet, and now we are at Cap Bonamy.
We're just going to look out over the water here for a while and see if anything comes in. A lot of the time we're chasing after stuff, but really it's probably better if you just stay in one spot and wait for the birds to come to you. Because of our itinerary and the fact that we have to get from point A to point B, we can't always stay as long as we'd like to, but we have the opportunity to maybe do that now. Before we start looking there, did also get some really good looks at kestrels at one of our previous stops, some footage of those hovering over a meadow area.
Not far from Poisson-Pierre earlier this morning is where we got good views of those kestrels hunting over a cliffside meadow, 3 of them altogether, working along the bluffs. But let's return to the present and Cap Bon-Ami within Forillon National Park. Sarah and I spent some time at an elevated lookout over the Gulf. Many of the usual suspects, like cormorants, the usual gulls, and several more seals on the rocks. But then Sarah noticed a small bird with bright orange legs. Now you guys have a good view on your big screens, but we were squinting to make it out at the time. After examining a few photos and zooming in, black guillemot, a lifer. In breeding plumage they are black, but for the bold white patches on their wings. We're not in Quebec at the ideal time for auk species like this, and puffins and razorbills. That would be during the peak of summer, but at least we've got an auk species. We're still searching for a lesser black-backed gull, but so far all we're seeing is pink legs, like watching the can-can at the Moulin Rouge. From one cap to another, we're moving around the coast a bit further to this lighthouse at Cap de Rosière. Like covered bridges from earlier in the video, you can find plenty of red and white lighthouses around here too. This one was built in 1858 and it's the tallest in Canada at 112 feet. But can it shine a light on any birds for us? Below the cliffs, about a dozen harlequin ducks. We also saw a single surf scotter, more eiders, and another merlin. All cool birds, but the search continues for new ones for our target. Okay guys, we left Forillon National Park and we did at least get that black guillemot. That's a lifer, high five. It's not quite the 2 per day that we've been trying to average, but at least we got something on what has been a quiet, actually couple of days. We were hoping for some more passerines when we were at the national park, but it was very quiet, a few purple finches and stuff that are really not worth showing you. We've moved on to a couple of spots since then. But it does mean we've kind of passed the halfway point. We've turned around the Gaspe Peninsula at this point and we're starting to head back. We're almost at the St. Lawrence, the opening of the St. Lawrence again. It's been a picturesque drive, hasn't it, Sarah? Lots of different locations and different terrains.
Yeah, so we've gone through the Quebec Maritimes, really. I mean, we still have some more of the Maritimes to do. The Côte Nord, or the north coast of the St. Lawrence, is also considered part of the Maritimes. We are also going through some of the Appalachian Mountains, so we are getting some more hilly than maybe you would expect in a maritime situation.
Lots of beautiful conifer forests around us, small little fishing villages and that kind of thing. Very idyllic. We're going to push on a little bit further. If we see any fancy looking stops where we think there might be some birds, we'll take a look. Stay tuned, got a bit of driving to go before we reach our next destination.
Another lighthouse means another lookout opportunity.
Another hour or so of driving. Where are we, Sarah?
We are at the lighthouse at Cap de Madeleine.
Just having a look out behind us over the water here. Guess if we get any flybys, there's a few gulls and things out on the water, very distant, but we'll try our best.
From this lookout, you could see very little with the naked eye, but we suspected there might be a lifer out there.
We think we're seeing black-legged kittiwake out on the water here. That would be a lifer for us. It would get us our second bird of the day too.
We're gonna need a bigger camera.
I have something here called a teleconverter, which is a funky device that I can attach to my camera. This one gives it about 40% extra zoom. That doesn't always help if the conditions are kind of hazy out there. It's just going to kind of exaggerate that effect, but because we're shooting down at the water, hopefully this should give us a little bit more zoom in towards those potential kittiwakes.
Once readied, with some patience, I eventually got this shot of a black-legged kittiwake flying past. Lifer. Black-legged kittiwakes are close relatives of gulls. but their finer bill, sharper wings set them apart. Unlike most gulls, these are true creatures of the open sea, coming to land only to nest on sheer cliffs.
Okay guys, with much persistence, finally I got a fairly clear shot of a black-legged kittiwake lifer confirmed, and that's our 2 birds for the day that we've been trying to maintain. We're a bit behind on that, but we'll see if we can catch up. You never know, we might have a big fallout day. We're going to take a look now to see if we've got time for one more stop, or if we have to start heading towards the hotel. We've got another, hour or so of driving before we get there. Stay tuned, back in a sec.
Time was pressing on a little bit as we pushed our way back into the mouth of the St. Lawrence River. By the end of today, we needed to reach Saint-Anne-de-Mont. But we did manage one more stop along the roadside, about 20 minutes west of our last stop. I'd noticed gulls and ducks around the rocks within the river. There were a few common eiders wondering what on earth we wanted, and a mixture of gulls moved on and off this rock as we watched, but a few black-legged kittiwakes gave better looks than before. The bird in the centre of this shot, with the black streak along the wing, is an immature black-legged kittiwake.
Okay guys, we've stopped further along the road, down close to the water now, bit of a rocky formation, and there's a ton of stuff here. Our closest yet looks at common eider. Loads of gulls here too. We're seeing lots of ring-billed gulls, which is the most prevalent. There's a few herring gulls, probably the second most prevalent. We also think we've just got Bonaparte's gull, and closer looks at kittiwakes now, just out on some rocks nearby, so good looks at those, or better anyway. I think it's time for us to sign off. It's been a bit of a short day, so we're not going to go for a break or anything like that. Stay with us, we'll be right back with tomorrow's birding. As for us, we're going to the hotel, get some kip. Good night.
Good night.
Bon matin, Sarah.
Bon matin.
Where are we going today?
Le Parc National de Gaspesie.
And we're just going to do the one trail, right?
Yeah, so we're going to head to the Mont Ernest Lafosse trail.
Easy for you to say. I think we're just going to do a little bit of that trail. Before we do that, we have to drive up to it. It's part way up a mountain. Stay tuned. We'll do that trail shortly.
We're still on the peninsula here at Gaspe National Park, but we've moved inland a little to get here, not to mention up a mountain. There's a few of those around here because we're towards the north of the Appalachian mountain range. Boreal forest and altitude, a great combination to provide us with a change of habitat and a change of species.
If you see a moose, stay at least 5 die-cast toy buses distance away. Unless it's not to scale, Sarah. The man's bigger than the moose. Okay, nice and early. We're just going to do a small portion of this trail. Hopefully the birds will be near the beginning. How long's the trail altogether, Sarah?
Just over 4.5 kilometers.
We might do 2 or 3. We saw that somebody else did a checklist here, was it a couple of days ago?
Yeah, about 2 days ago.
And what were they seeing?
They saw pine grosbeak and Boreal Chickadee.
Those are 2 big nemesis birds. Let's take a look.
Pine, black spruce, and stands of paper birch, typical of the boreal domain. We felt optimistic this morning. We'd need to be patient though. In these large expanses of forest, birds tend to move through nomadically and often in flocks.
Guys, we can hear chickadees. This is a good spot for Boreal Chickadee. That is probably one of my most wanted lifers. It's a bird that we've tried for a few times, kind of very hopefully in Algonquin Park during good periods for them. And when we were in Minnesota too, we didn't get it either time. Bird I really want to see. We've seen quite a few different species of chickadee, but not boreal so far.
I saw movement, alas, an American redstart, but we could still hear chickadees.
Chickadee, chickadee, chickadee.
Not the best views at first, but unmistakably a Boreal Chickadee lifer, and I was pretty pleased.
Yes!
With persistence, we got a better look at a chickadee with a brown cap and cinnamon brown flanks, but maintaining the white cheek and black bib of other chickadee species. Not much further, and we suddenly had some more action.
Just heard something rustling in the bushes. I thought it was something quite small, kind of sparrow-sized, We had a look around for a little while. Next thing we know, a little head pops out, spruce grouse, 2 birds, first stop of the day. Pretty cool. Really like that bird, only ever seen it a couple of times before. Decent looks, its body was hidden, but you saw that red eyebrow marking it out as a male. Cool bird. I thought.
Our arrival was so fascinating that this spruce grouse barely had time to compose himself, small leaf fragment hanging from its beak. A little later, it emerged from the undergrowth and onto the path to give us some fantastic views. A true bird of the boreal forest, the spruce grouse feeds mainly on conifer needles and spends much of its time quietly foraging on the ground beneath the trees. This is our first grouse of the year. We still need a ruffed grouse on this trip, or back in Ontario. We continued for another mile or so along the trail, looking out for more birds. Another black-backed woodpecker here. This one is male. It has a patch of yellow on the crown.
Fox sparrow.
Very brief views of a fox sparrow that hopped out into view. A few dark-eyed juncos kicking around, which back in southern Ontario would be a sign of impending winter, but here, at altitude and a little further north, they can be found year-round and will breed here. As winter sets in, they may move to lower altitudes. We had eyes on a few warblers like this magnolia too, one of our favourite eastern warbler species. Gaspe National Park is absolutely huge, and you could probably spend days here. It's possible to even find caribou in some areas. But we have an itinerary to keep, so it's time to drive back down the mountain. Around midday, we stopped at Explorer-Mer in Saint-Anne-de-Monte to learn more about the river. The St. Lawrence is a corridor that shaped Canada's history. It was a lifeline for food and travel for Indigenous peoples and the settlers that followed, later becoming a vital trade route and a gateway to the Great Lakes and the continent's interior. Stretching over 1,000 kilometres, the river and the lakes that it feeds are tidal, and the tidal estuary is one of the largest in the world, home to countless fish, millions of birds, and even a home for over a dozen species of whale. Few rivers anywhere support such a wealth of life or hold such a place in human history. Next up, we visited a location a little to the west.
We are at Cap Shore, or Cat's Cape, and we see some shorebirds in the distance. We're going to have to leg it down the beach to try and find out what they are.
In hot pursuit of some sorely missing shorebirds. They wouldn't let us get close without pushing further away, but they are sandlings on the edge of the sand. And although they did flush closer to us, as you'll know by now, it's a bird we've already seen here in Quebec. But there was something else here.
Well, it was just sandlings after all that, but we did find something else on the way, didn't we, Sarah?
Yep, American pipit.
That's one off our backs, that's for sure. A bird that we struggled with last year. It's a bird that kind of often flies in and then disappears just as quickly as it came, but there's a ton of them on this beach. They're feeding on insects, on the seaweed or the kelp that's washed onto the beach. So that's a third bird for the day. I think we're going to take lunch now, drive to another stop, maybe have a bit of a picnic. We picked up sandwiches earlier, and then we'll continue with the birding. Stay tuned, back in a sec.
3 more pipits here, working their way across the beach, picking insects from the seaweed left behind by the retreating tide. They breed on the Arctic tundra, and western individuals on alpine meadows high in the mountains, but during migration they'll happily swap tundra and mountain tops for seaweed-strewn beaches like this. We need to make a little more progress on the road. Our destination for the evening is Matane, our final stop on the south side of the St. Lawrence River.
Okay guys, we're just outside of Matane in Petite Matane. We're staying in Matane tonight. We pulled over to a roadside stop and a black-bellied plover flew past us. I think we can count it, I think it's good enough views, but we are going to see if we can get a little bit closer. There's a few other peeps on the beach here too, mostly semi-palmated plovers. Let's see if we can get a closer look at this black belly.
That flyby of the black-bellied plover isn't great, but it's diagnostic enough to count. And just to help confirm, it lands a little further down the beach. The larger bird in the centre of this shot is the black-bellied plover. Again, this bird is in non-breeding plumage at this time of the year, so we're not seeing the deep black plumage running from the belly up to the face of the bird.
We have some peeps over here, some shorebirds that are very tolerant of our presence. They're just feeding on the fleas, on the kelp and the seaweed. You can get quite close to them. We believe we've got a single petrel sandpiper and a few least sandpiper. They're not new, but good looks. Pretty successful haul of birds today, right, Sarah?
Yep.
3 new ones. Boreal Chickadee, awesome lifer, nemesis, 3 years, 4 years going. I think we are going to head towards our hotel. We're catching a ferry across the St. Lawrence tomorrow, very wide at this point. Maybe we'll see some birds as we go across. We might take a quick look at the harbour as a final stop for the day, and then we'll leave you with a commercial break until tomorrow. Stay tuned for a little bit longer.
Into Matan, we paid a quick stop near to a harbour, but here we just saw sanderlings and a few gulls.
We've come to a beach area just before the harbour, but there's not too much here. A few of the common gulls that we've been seeing throughout the trip. Although having said that, we are still looking out for a lesser black-backed gull, seeing lots of the great ones. Leg colour is the biggest giveaway, as well as size. There's a few sanderlings kicking around just in front of us, actually. But that's about it, I think. Sarah, we're getting the ferry tomorrow at what time?
Around 2 p.m.
So say goodbye to the south shore of the St. Lawrence. Have to wave that goodbye, and we'll be on the north side tomorrow afternoon. Around about what time?
We should get there around 5 p.m.
And what's the name of the town that we're going to land in?
Big Mo.
So we'll have some footage from there, but probably the day after tomorrow. For the time being, we're going to say goodnight, head to our hotel, get something to eat and all that kind of thing. We'll be catching the ferry in the afternoon. Hopefully there'll be some birds either in the harbours or perhaps on the ride over the St. Lawrence. Bye for now. See you in the morning. Good morning again, everyone. We are in Matan, or just outside of Matan, and we're just checking a few of the parking spots that are next to the beach, just seeing if we can find anything interesting. As mentioned, we have the ferry later today. We'll see if we can see anything from there. We did have some bad weather overnight, quite a bit of rain, and it's a bit blustery this morning, not too bad, but we've seen a few things this morning, but mostly the common birds that we've already seen. We don't want to keep showing you the same birds over and over again, but it is to be expected at this point. We're only really looking for the more elusive stuff because we found all the common stuff. Let's take a quick look at some of what we saw.
The St. Lawrence River is tidal, and we were learning that around 7:30 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. were good times to look for shorebirds, where the tide is high enough to reduce the number of hiding spots and push the birds closer towards us, but when it was also just beginning to retreat to provide fresh foraging opportunities for the birds. One of the most common shorebirds we were seeing almost every day, semi-palmated plover. All of these birds are well camouflaged against the rocks, and they would often reveal themselves as we stumbled blindly towards them. It kind of made us wonder how many birds we didn't see along thousands of kilometres of shoreline. Speaking of birds we didn't see, someone reported a Hudsonian godwit yesterday, just minutes after we left Petit Matan.
Alright guys, probably about 2 hours spent looking for stuff. We've seen some of our old favourites, the least sandpiper, and so many semi-palmated plovers around. We've come to Petit Matan, and we were looking around for a little while because there were reports of a Hudsonian godwit. That would be a new bird for us. We actually bumped into the person that reported it yesterday. Through our poor French and her poor English, we kind of figured out she was the person, and she told us roughly where it was hanging out. So we've just been looking around, then suddenly everything happened. Let's take a look at some of the things we saw and what we thought they might be, and then we'll come to a flyby that we think was the Hudsonian godwit.
When I say everything happened all at once, we had a distant loon out on the river that took a moment for us to ID it, because it was in non-breeding plumage, but it's a common loon with a thick bill and relatively level head. And then an unusual call, and I managed to get a shot of flying shorebirds. This one is a Hudsonian godwit. The white patch on the rump is a help. So yeah, that white rump patch, we're pretty sure it was Hudsonian godwit, but even if it wasn't, it was. But even if it wasn't, a few moments later it landed and I got progressively closer to it and eventually got some good shots of Hudsonian godwit. New bird for the year. It's one of the shorebirds that I really like seeing, but they're not so plentiful, so it was good to see it. Hudsonian godwit, new bird. A few shorebirds flew in, including the Hudsonian godwit here, and on the right, with some breeding plumage still showing, another black-bellied plover. We spent an hour gradually sneaking a little closer, and I reattached my teleconverter to try for better, closer looks. Eventually, getting this shot. The Hudsonian godwit takes its name from the Hudson's Bay, where much of its breeding grounds lie. Unlike many shorebirds that forage in shallow pools, these long-billed travellers probe deeper into the mud for worms and aquatic insects. Like its shorebird cousins, it breeds in the north and then migrates to South America, so it is glimpsed only briefly here while it refuels a little. Meanwhile, we watched this herring gull searching for shellfish, probably mussels. Mussel shells are tough, usually too strong for a gull to crack open with its beak, but these are smart birds. They'll fly up and drop the mollusk from a height, adjusting how high depending on how much force they think they need, to smash it open on the rocks below. Many gull species use this trick, but it's most often seen in those species that live their lives along oceans and estuaries like herring gulls. A brief visit to an outlet where the Matan River joins the St. Lawrence. Here we got good looks at an American pipit, we got something to eat, and then waited for the ferry. This is the widest point of the river that you can cross by ferry, and it takes about 2 hours, 20 minutes from Matan to Baie-Comeau. It isn't particularly cheap, about $80 for a car and driver, and another $25 per passenger. The ferry, the MV Félix Adrien Gaultier, is named for the first mayor of Baie-Comeau. It is over 130 metres long, cruises at 20 knots, and can carry around 180 cars and 800 passengers. We spent some time on the freezing cold upper deck looking for birds, spotting a common loon in the dock as we were leaving port. But after seeing nothing for an hour, we retreated to the inside of the ferry. Another hour later, we began to close in on Baie-Comeau. We did also see a ton of Bonaparte's gulls in the waters around the ship. Time to disembark, and just enough time to check the shore around our hotel. The sun was fading in this pretty spot. A large flotilla of American black ducks passed by, with the occasional cormorant or gull. And just 3 green-winged teals, much smaller than the black ducks. Okay guys, a slightly less eventful ferry ride than perhaps I had hoped for. We did see some Bonaparte's gulls once we got close to the shore. I think that's it for now. As you can see, the sun's starting to go down. It's looking a little bit orangey in the background, and we're looking a bit dark too. We're going to get something to eat, and we will continue birding tomorrow. As the sun went down, we were looking forward to our remaining days of birding, now onto the north shore of the St. Lawrence. But things don't get off to a good start. Back soon. Things began to go wrong in the morning. Our plan was to arrive at a location that had some really promising recent sightings, but Pointe aux Outardes did not post their opening hours. We arrived at 7 AM, but they were closed until 9 AM, and we couldn't wait around for 2 hours. This meant that we had then missed high tide for the rest of our drive. Despite visiting promising and well-known spots over the next few days, like Cap de Bon Désir and many others, we were just not seeing any birds of note. I'll explain more. Good morning everyone, where are we this morning, Sarah?
We're at Marais de Lyon Provencher.
And that's the other side of Quebec City.
Come sit down, guys, got some bad news for you. After we caught the ferry from the town and crossed to the north shore of the St. Lawrence, we've just had zero luck with birds. What's the name of the place we landed on the north?
Bécomo.
So from Bécomo, we then went to Tadoussac and continued along basically to Quebec City, stayed in Quebec City, didn't really see anything there. We've come the other side of Quebec City. It's quite disappointing that we don't really have anything to show you. Disappointing for us because we wanted to show you more birds. Maybe disappointing to you if you're a fan of Côte Nord. We don't have anything from there really. A couple of things did happen. Sarah, you sighted something on the side of the road.
Yep, so not a bird, but a bear.
Yeah, black bear on the side of the road just outside of Tadoussac. What else has happened? We had a whale watching tour, so maybe let's go take a look at that and then we'll come back to this location. Maybe we can end on a bit of a high here just outside of Quebec City before we have to head back to Ontario.
We set off from port in mid-morning. The whale watching boat will explore the St. Lawrence, which is still sailing from the Atlantic Ocean past Tadoussac and becomes mostly freshwater once you reach around Quebec City. We'll also spend a little time along this river, the Rivière Saguenay. As we entered deeper waters, we began to see the first whales. The common minke whale is the second smallest of the baleen whales. Quick and elusive, they surface only briefly before slipping back under, making every glimpse rewarding. The star of the show was a fin whale.
Ah, on l'a entendu aussi bien respirer. Et voilà, there we go, there we go.
This is the second largest whale after the blue whale. They can reach 25 metres in length, yet move with surprising speed and grace. A giant at home here and the open ocean.
Voilà, there you go.
As we moved into the beautiful surroundings of the Rivière Saguenay, we caught occasional distant glimpses of beluga whales. This is an endangered species that the boat is not allowed to pursue or deviate course towards. Some good views of seals too. This is a harbour seal, a smaller species compared to the grey seals that we saw earlier. We turned back for the pretty town of Tadoussac.
Okay guys, welcome back to the present day. Sorry, remind us, Sarah, where are we this morning?
At Marais de Lyon Provencher.
A couple of birds reported here, I think.
So main one that was reported was red-necked phalarope, but on the way in, looking at the signage, also seems like rough grouse hang out here.
That would be a good one to find. We'll see if we can concentrate on that briefly. And then that red-necked phalarope would... Is that a lifer?
That would be a lifer.
That would be a lifer for us, so that would be a good find if we can get that. Just before we continue, I think the problem that we've had here on the north shore of the St. Lawrence is that we're kind of on the shoulder season, kind of midway through September, and some of the birds that you would hope to find here in the summer, some of the auks, in particular razorbill, that was a bird we were really hoping to see, just quietened down for them a little bit at this time of year, but we also are just a bit too early for some of those finch species, like evening grosbeak, redpoll. Those are birds that we need, that we didn't get. Pine grosbeak as well, that's a big nemesis for us in the east. So that's the reason it's been quiet. It's still a beautiful part of the country, but we'll have a look around this new location and see if we can salvage something for the end of this video, maybe. Stay tuned.
Once more into the woods, and our look begins to change. There is a ruffed grouse just in the trees, milling around on the ground here. I already filmed it to make sure it doesn't get away, but yeah, both grouse species this year, that's good. Another bird for the count, at least we've got something as we come to the end of this trip. Ruffed grouse, excellent camouflage, great at hiding behind brush, and brilliant at making it hard to get a good shot. But we got it. These birds are masters of the boreal and mixed forests of Canada, feeding on buds, leaves and berries through the seasons. They overwinter here, so in autumn they rely heavily on fruits and seeds to build reserves for the long winter ahead. With plumage that's mottled brown and grey, the ruffed grouse seems stitched from the forest floor itself, the colour of fallen leaves, twigs, trunks and the shadows of the trees. Next mission, head towards the St. Lawrence River. Challenging views with the tide out and the haze of the sun beginning to rise.
Okay guys, we've come down as far as the river. The tide is quite far out, so there's a lot of space for things to hide in, but as best we can tell, just a few grumpy herons out there and some gulls of different species. But look at the change in the tree colour. As the trees face towards the water and it's cooler, you can really see the change as we head towards fall. We're going to head back into the trees now, through the trail again. As we were going through there, we heard a red-shouldered hawk. That's a species we still need. We thought we might have a chance of seeing it around here, but maybe the marsh will have some luck for us. As we continue through the woods on our way to the marsh, one of the kind of amusing observations from our time here birding in Quebec is, as we've gone about to different locations, we've obviously run into other birders whose first language is often French, as you might expect, and so we often end up in a situation where we're trying to describe a bird that we've seen, or they're trying to tell us about one, but the common names are different in French than they are in English. Some of them are more descriptive of the bird. Particularly in English, you have a lot of human names associated with birds. But some of them are quite amusing too. One of my favourites is the sandpiper type birds have chevalier in their name a lot of the time, which means knight, as in medieval knight, which we think is because the birds, if you kind of imagine the top part of the bird and the legs going around a horse, it's kind of like a horse rider kind of vibe to it. That's quite amusing. So you've got Grand Chevalier for greater yellowlegs. And do you remember spotted sandpiper, Sarah?
Chevalier Grivelet.
So speckled knight. Any others you can think of?
So one of the examples of a more descriptive one is one of the things we've been looking out for is a king eider, which in French is eider à tête gris, or a grey-headed eider, which makes a lot more sense actually.
Let's go and see if we can find some chevaliers. Well, we found the marsh, a few things out there, nothing new but a few interesting birds. As you can see, we're inside a hide, which seems like a good way to slide into talking about the hide, our membership program. A quick shout out to Daniela, who has recently joined, and the Malloy family. Really appreciate you joining, and our long-term members too. This shot is way too silly. Sarah didn't want to do it, but she's hiding over there. A couple of pied-billed grebes out on the calm waters. It was a really nice marsh, decent size, but not so large that the birds were out of sight, and the grebes gave us a good show. We saw a kingfisher, a green heron, and what kind of self-respecting marsh wouldn't come with a great blue heron? The red-shouldered hawk that we heard earlier didn't make an appearance, unfortunately, and its calls had become more distant. Time, I'm afraid, for our final stop in this video. Our previous stop was just outside Quebec City, and we have to get back to Ontario by the end of the day. Just past Trois-Rivières, where the St. Lawrence briefly widens, is our last throw of the dice. Okay, Sarah, where are we now?
Point Yamashish.
This looks like it's going to be our last stop of the day. One last hurrah, maybe. This is a place that comes highly recommended. Sandy area near a beach with some marsh. It looks like it might be good for shorebirds. We've heard reports of Baird's sandpiper, but we've seen reports of lots of stuff here. Hudsonian godwit we already have, and that's a pretty cool bird. We don't have much time to film, so we're just going to head there now. We need to get to Kingston, Ontario before the end of the day, so stay tuned, let's have a quick look. Busting it along the trail, we encountered a handful of birds, but we had a schedule to keep to. Worth a quick pause though for a pair of greater yellowlegs that didn't seem too worried about our presence. We didn't get great views of the kingfisher, but you can hear it in the background. So we kept going to the beach. And we concentrated on the edge of this mudflat near a marsh where we could make out some distant shorebirds. We had to work quickly because non-birders and dog walkers were flushing the birds, but we saw some of the usuals. This greater yellowlegs, semi-palmated plovers, gulls, herons, mallards. But this bird flew back in after being scared away, and it caught our interest. We snuck a little closer and eventually ID'd this as a Baird's sandpiper, a new bird for the count, and we are tantalisingly close to making it to 350 birds, but our time in Quebec is up. We didn't get our average of 2 birds per day, especially after things slowed down, but maybe that's okay. Maybe completing the challenge in Ontario is more fitting. This is Brit Hikes Ontario, after all. Okay guys, it looks like we just got the bed sandpiper just before it flew away. I tried to get a teleconverter on my camera to get closer looks, but it flew away before we could get it, but we're pretty confident on the idea of that. One more bird before the end of the video, but it is now the end of the video. Thanks so much for watching, I hope you enjoyed. We maybe need to come back to Quebec at a better time. We already planned our time off from work, and then a few plans fell through, and Quebec ended up being where we came, but we would have liked to have gotten Razorbill, so maybe we need to go somewhere east coast-ish or Quebec again sometime more towards the summer to get that. Sarah, what would you say your highlight bird or experience from this trip has been?
From a bird perspective, I would say Hudsonian Godwit, and from experience, probably spotting the bear.
Oh yeah, the bear, that was pretty awesome. I think for me it goes without saying, you probably could tell from my reaction, the Boreal Chickadee is a bird that I've wanted to see for quite a long time, so that was fun. The spruce grouse too, pretty fortunate views of that, just strutting across the path. It's a cool bird. Anyway guys, thanks for watching this video. Please hit that like button. Please also leave us a comment, let us know what you think. Sarah?
And if you haven't already, please subscribe, and after subscribing, select the bell for notifications once new videos are posted.
Quick shout out to Sylvan, who is from the area. He recommended a few spots for us, including this one, so thanks for that beds, Sandpiper. Would have liked to have stayed here for maybe a little bit longer, but time to go to Kingston, Ontario. Once more, thanks for watching. Thank you to all of our supporters and friends of the channel who help us keep going. Happy birding, see you soon, bye for now.
Merci, au revoir.
Alright guys, it looks like we got bed sandpaper.
Sandpaper?
Okay guys, it looks like we just got ourselves a Baird's sandpiper, a little bit distant, but it flew away before I could put my At its heart lies the St. Lawrence, a river so vast it becomes an estuary. Because we do expect to get closer looks at some of these shorebirds in particular. Got about another hour of driving and time, we think, to add one more stop to. Quebec is a province dominated by forest and water. It begins... no it doesn't. We left Forillon National Park and we did at least get that black guillemot. We are at Cap Chat or Cape's Cat. We are at Cap Chat or Cat's Cove. Cape. We are at Cap Chat or Cape's me. It's a tongue twister.